Welcome to Life Cycle Talks, a series of talks presenting the research front to keep you up to date with the science and application of the life cycle perspective. All life cycle talks will be published and available on the Swedish Life Cycle Center YouTube channel after the live streaming has ended. Today's life cycle talk is How Green is Your Business?, where we will be introduced to the brand new method, business model life cycle assessment. My name is Sarah Pallander, and I'm happy to welcome our guest for today, Henrikke Baumann, professor at Chalmers University of Technology. Warm welcome, Henrikke.
When stars align, sometimes one has the rare chance to create something really new. Anyway, that's how it feels with the development of business model LCA. And having worked with LCA and life cycle management for many years, I can say that business model LCA really brings a new perspective, that of business, which is quite different from that of product function that we are used to with LCA. It shows how business choices affect the environment, and the relevance of business model LCA to business means that business as usual can become greener than usual. I will give an introduction to business model LCA with a background, some basic principles, and glimpses from a completed study. But it was not just me doing this. There were 5 of us, and it was really a happy, lucky coincidence that it happened at all. It started with Thomas Sobel, a researcher in Luleå who researches sustainable business models. And he emerged via contacts with a question. How could one measure the environmental performance of a business model? Could you do it? And well, personally, I didn't have enough time. And all our PhD students are already busy with their own projects. Then I remember I had an incoming PhD student as a guest from Italy, and she wanted a project. And then, luckily, so to say, the project for one of our PhD students fell through, so he too needed a new project. And I paired them up. And with his main supervisors, we were a veritable dream team. So where did Thomas's question come from? And why put it to us, life cycle researchers? Well, a place to begin is the observation that a growing economy has come with a growing material and environmental footprint. And this is unsustainable in so many ways. And many therefore call for decoupling of economic growth from environmental impact. But decoupling is often discussed on a macro level with GDPs and environmental statistics. So what does it mean in a more concrete and practical situation, as in a company? Here, social scientists and management scholars point to the key role of business models, as they can be understood as the many little engines of the economy, so to say. And many now explore sustainable business models, be it product service systems or sharing models or circular business models. And they also innovate on existing business models to make them more sustainable. Unfortunately, something is missing. And that is a method to measure the environmental performance of these business models. And instead, people rely on eco-design or circular design principles, archetypes of business models, some indicators and rules of thumb. But without a method for measuring environmental impact, it is difficult to know if a sustainable business model really is sustainable. And that is where Thomas's question came from. As life cycle researchers, we had to give this question some thought. Although LCA is good for modeling product systems and measuring environmental impact, a product system is not the same as a business model. The two are related, but how? We realized that from management studies and business theories that for a company, a product is one means for business. There are other means such as pricing, marketing, distribution, and production strategies. And in a way, one can say that business is built around a product. And a product could be replaced by another while still keeping the same business model. Another answer is that it is a matter of scale. I'll give an example. With LCA, a company can make a simple, lightweight t-shirt with a small environmental footprint. However, the company may have to sell a lot of those t-shirts to even make a profit. So with mass sales and mass production, where do we end up with the environmental impact? This is something that business model LCA needs to be able to handle, such business-related effects, and scale the product LCA to the level of the business model. So how do we do that? The first clue comes from LCA methodology itself, more specifically the functional unit in LCA, which expresses the function of the studied system used in a comparison. For business model LCA, the function in focus is not the product, it's the business model. And what the company looks for in a business model is profitability, to make money, to be able to stay in business. This means that the functional unit needs to be profit-based. The general profit formula gives us what the profit is. It's all the revenues minus the cost for gaining these, and counted over a certain period of time. And this allows us to define a functional unit that is a measure of profitability, that is a certain level of profit over a given time. The word decoupling holds the second clue. To decouple, we know that things must be coupled. So we look very concretely for where costs and revenues of the business model appear in the product system, and then go on to express the relationship of cost and revenue streams to the product flows with a set of coupling equations. I'll use our study of business models for a jacket to show how this is done practically. To begin, we need to be able the business model in the product system, but an LCA is actor neutral, so it's difficult to place it. So we add an actor analysis to the life cycle to identify the company with a business model and where it sits in the life cycle. And there you see it in blue. Next, we identify the points on the flows where the cost and the revenues interact with the life cycle flows. And for each such interaction point, we express the relationship between monetary flows and the product flows with a coupling equation. And this gives several coupling equations. Here are a few examples. Revenues depends on the number of jackets sold times the price of jacket. We have the cost of procuring the jackets, and we have the cost of sales in the store. So each coupling equation has an element related to the product system in blue and other related to the business model, red or green. And this sort of concretizes how the economic system is coupled to the technical system and environmental impact. And we do this for every cost and revenue stream in the business model. And we do this for each business model in our comparison. So we had two business models that we compared, a sales model and a rental model. And the question we asked is, for a given profit level, what is the environmental performance of each business model? So for this, we need to calculate the number of transactions needed for that profit level and the number of jackets needed too. And that is what you see in the table. In the sales model, we need to produce as many jackets as we have transactions, but in the rental model, the number of jackets produced is different than the number of transactions. And that we need to figure out. And for this, we use the profit formula and the coupling equations. Here are the two business models. And I'm going to show how we calculated the number of transactions for the rental model with the coupling equations and the profit formula. And it's a big equation and it looks like this. Yes, I know it looks a little bit overwhelming at first sight, but in short, it shows how the number of needed transactions T depend on the profit level pi, the rental price P, the jacket maintenance costs, jacket replacement rates, second-hand sales, and retail store costs. So it's quite distinguishable after all. Methodologically speaking, business model LCA can be seen as an LCA with a more elaborate goal and scoping phase. We divide it into a descriptive and a coupling phase, where we first describe the business models and then express the coupling equations. And from there on, it's basically conventional LCA methodology. In a way, business model LCA is an LCA with a business model attached to it, attached with the coupling equations. And these are really key, since it is these that enable the scaling of LCA to the business model and enable analysis for decoupling. So they are so worth it. Now some results. Here we see transactions and the number of jackets for each business model. And the number of jackets is really a first indicator that the business models have different environmental performance. At first glance, it appears as if the rental model is more decoupled than the sales model, but it's just the number of jackets. We don't have the full LCA picture. And here we have the results for that. Looking deeper, we see a sales model dominated by environmental impacts from production and a rental model dominated by impacts from customer transport to the shop. This could be problematic for our case company. It is, so to say, their greenest business model, and it's highly sensitive to something outside of their control. And also, another business choice on, let's say, rental price would change the number of rental transactions needed to achieve the stated profit. And with that, the number of trips to the shop will also be affected. So we did a sensitivity analysis. And thanks to the coupling equations, we can vary not only the technical and behavior variables in the product LCA, but also the business variables to see how business model environmental performance changes. And we did many analyses, but let's look into rental price levels and customer choice of transportation. In the top, you see reducing rental price indeed requires more transactions and lead to worse results than for the sales model. But business model environmental performance is even more sensitive to customer transportation. Down below, you see the red bar is so much longer for the rental model than for this conventional sales model. And although customer transportation is outside of the company control, there are ways for them to influence this through location of stores, other distribution channels, how they do market communication. And this is what business model innovation is. It's all about such choices. And the sensitivity analysis is key for informing them on this. And for the rental model to be more decoupled than the sales model, the company must make careful choices. our results show that they need to be what they need to be mindful about to avoid accidentally making excessive green claims and risking what some might perceive as greenwashing. So far, 2 studies have been done. The first was a jacket study through which we developed the method. The second is a comparison of 5 business models around electric vehicle for Volvo cars. And it was carried out by 2 students as their master's thesis project. The fact that they managed to complete a business model LCA study shows, in a way, the feasibility of the method, even when the company is large and with complex business models and complex products. And the report will soon be published. What they also studied was how the method and results were received in the company. The coupling of business logics to environmental logics is of great interest to business and environmental specialists alike. But it takes a while for these specialists to grasp the novel perspective of the method. Nevertheless, it brings them together, and if business managers can learn the environmental effects of their business choices and vice versa, environmentalists learn about the business effects of environmental solutions, it will be easier to integrate environmental solutions in business. So in the end, what have we learned? The business model is governed by economic self-interest, and it's in the blue box. It's in the part of the life cycle, but it has system-wide environmental effects that are of concern for anyone, of common interest. And business model LCA connects these 2 logics. And in practice, they sometimes are competing, but they don't have to be. And business model LCA shows the environmental dimension of business through the scaling of a product LCA. Many now experiment with sustainable business models. Business models LCA allows them to check if environmental performance of these business models is as expected. But also conventional existing business models can be analyzed for decoupling and be made greener through business model innovation. And we have seen how business model LCA brings together business managers and environmental specialists and provide them with overview, new perspectives and learnings. And with that, acting on that, that's how they can make business model greener than usual.
Thank you, Henrikke Baumann. And now I have some questions. It was really interesting presentation. And when you're developing this method, did you find any surprising results?
Well, with something as novel as this, there has been quite a few surprises. And I would say the biggest one is probably that no one has done this before. We thought that when we solved the way to do it, we thought it was a sort of a simple logic. And so we thought somebody must have done this before, but we searched quite a lot to make sure we hadn't missed anything. But we only found studies that claimed to be LCAs of business models, but really they just centered on product designs more or less as usual, and not on the business models as such. So that was really surprising to us, that we did something that was so new in a way. And another surprise was what quite nice was how much more the case company was interested in what we were doing. At first, they thought we were going to do a product LCA, and they were like, okay, fine, we've seen LCAs before, you can do that. But then we explained that we wanted to do an environmental assessment of their business models. And then they were, aha, that's interesting. And then they were really quite helpful in providing us with the data about their business. So that was really a nice surprise.
And there are many challenges in a new method. What do you and your colleagues see as possible areas for improvement and further research?
Oh, I mean, to begin, and for sure, there is really an interest in measuring business model environmental performance. So that is like a good start that we can work with this. And in both cases, it was us academics that conducted these studies, not the people in the company. But even so, their interest is clear. You asked about what we could improve.
Yes.
So we see a number of things. I mean, in a way, the method holds as it is. The principles and the logic are what they are, but there are still things I see that we can do. I mean, we would like to move into different forms of decoupling and the relation of results from business model LCA and conventional product LCA. There are time dimensions that we need to explore further. But one obvious thing is just to do more studies, to learn more about the application of the method on different types of business models, on different types of products, and in order to improve guidance, so to say. And a very particular case would be to look at value networks. So with regard to circular economy, networks of company need to sort of come into new forms, new circular constellation. And it's not enough that just one company has a viable business model. All of them need to have viable business models. And if one of them cannot get their business model to be profitable, then the circular chain will fail. So it would be really interesting to test the method on such a value network with a group of companies. And then, of course, we also would like to see what happens in the company when you do these kind of studies, what kind of learnings and how do they make sense of the method, and what happens with the strategies and so on. But personally, I mean, to me, I see there is now rising interest in the method. So I'm concerned about training and capacity building for business model LCA. It brings so many new perspectives, and I see that people are struggling with the shift from product LCA to business perspective, and this means like a little bit of a mind shift. So I'm really looking into training some form of training material around this. So just having this opportunity to talk, this is so fantastic. So thank you for that to begin with.
And could you just elaborate a little bit more about the lessons learned so far from the companies that have tested the methodology? You said that they were quite surprising, but could you give us some more details about the reactions?
Yes. Well, in the jacket case, and that company is really a company that is very environmentally ambitious, and they had their rental model and they believed so much in it. And when we showed how the results were so sensitive to customer transportation, they were taken aback, and they really sort of, we need to rethink a few things. So they really saw the risk of pushing a business model that was so sensitive on something that was outside of their control. So they really wanted to find a way how to avoid that. So that means that our results are very meaningful for their business design. So that was an interesting reaction to meet, so to say. And in the other automotive case, when we had this, I mean, it's a large company, so they really have specialists and they know their little part of the big organization. And when they come together, it was really challenging to sort of, for them to grasp the bigger picture. And they came with different perspectives. So we really need to be able to translate this so we can speak to business people and then to environmentalists and sort of translate, and so they can help their communication. And to see this sort of fragmented understanding in these such large organizations, I can see how certain things become difficult to move forward. And I hope that Business Model LCA can provide them with that overview and help them with a bigger picture. So those are some of the things. And I think also they were a little bit surprised of the very many different opinions that the different specialists had. So yes, I think it's good that it comes to the surface. Thank you.
And just a short question and a short answer. What will be your dream case study and case company or product to study the next? What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, as a researcher, I really want something that is quite different from what I've already done. So doing this value networks thing would really be a new challenge that would sort of get my brain going. So yes, that would be it, I think.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Henrikke Baumann, professor at Chalmers University of Technology. So if you're interested in business model lifecycle assessment, 3 articles have recently been published. The first one is an introduction to business model lifecycle assessment. And the second one is a general description of the method. And the third one presents results from case studies. Links to these articles will be found on our webpage, lifecyclecenter.se, under the main menu calendar. And this research, as Kiki said, has been developed together with Daniel Böcking, Julia Goffetti, Anne-Marie Tillman, and Thomas Sobel. The Life Cycle Talks are published by the Innovation Cluster for the Life Cycle Perspective and Swedish Life Cycle Center. Thanks for listening, and the next talk will be launched after the summer. Follow Swedish Life Cycle Center on LinkedIn and feel free to subscribe to our newsletter.